Hey everybody, I'm Doug, that's Conor, and you're listening to the Bethel School District Presents podcast. We have a fantastic show for everybody this week, but before we get started, be sure and like, comment, subscribe, share with a friend. We'd love for you to share the show far and wide, just like Radio Tacoma 101.9 is doing Saturdays at 2 p.m. You can hear us there every weekend, and this week we are talking about students who are experiencing homelessness and the hurdles they have to overcome to get to the graduation stage, and we have some amazing results to talk about. You're going to hear some stories and hear from some folks here that work very closely with those students. That's coming up in just a minute. But first, Conor, it's time for Useless Trivia. What do you got for us this week?
It absolutely is, and summer's winding down, so I thought I'd take one last hurrah and give us a summer-ish themed Useless Trivia. So Douglas, did you know that the Popsicle was invented by accident by an 11-year-old?
Really?
It's true. In 1905, Frank Epperson mixed powdered soda flavoring with water and accidentally left it outside overnight with a wooden stirring stick in the cup. Happened to be an unusually cold night in the San Francisco Bay Area, and by morning, the drink had frozen around the stick. Epperson apparently tried it, he liked it, and began sharing the frozen treats with other kids. But here's the weird part. He waited nearly 20 years to do much about the idea. As an adult, Epperson began selling the treats and applied for a patent in 1923. In 1924, the patent for a frozen confectionery designed to be eaten by holding a stick, no plate, no fork, no spoon. He originally called the invention the Epsicle, combining his name Epperson with icicle. His own children didn't like that. They reportedly started calling them Popsicles, which inspired the name Popsicle.
How about that?
And my source on that, because I know you're about to ask,
I'm a stickler,
is Smithsonian Magazine. What about you, Douglas? What do you got this week?
Well, I love that you took us back to 1905. My useless trivia isn't going to go back that far, but we will go back to the greatest era of all the eras. The 80s, Conor. 1982, when the U.S. Border Patrol decided they were going to do a roadblock on US 1. That's the sole highway connecting the Florida Keys to the mainland, and they were checking vehicles for drugs and other things. This resulted in a traffic jam 17 miles long, and you know who didn't like that? The mayor of Key West, Conor. He seceded from the United States. That's right. Key West seceded from the Union and declared war on the United States. Before I go farther, my source is CBS News. This actually happened. Key Westerners literally attacked federal forces and naval officers, hurling volleys of stale Cuban bread, water balloons, and conch fritters. Exactly 1 minute later, the mayor surrendered to U.S. naval officer and promptly requested $1 billion in foreign aid for post-war reconstruction. The whole stunt actually did work, and the blockade was removed from U.S. 1.
Wow, the world's shortest civil war. I love it. And not a violent one, so we love that. But I don't blame him. That kind of traffic jam would drive me nuts as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's not be a traffic jam of nonsense getting in the way of what people came to listen to.
Joining us today is friend of the pod, Darius Alexander. And Darius is back with a whole new title. He is now the Director of Equity, Access, and Community Engagement. And that title is the result of the merging of two of our departments, our Community Connections team and our Equity and Achievement team. Both those departments do amazing, tireless work to remove barriers for our students.
So Darius, to talk about what that means, you actually grew up here in Bethel, and you've said before your elementary and middle school years were actually tough ones. What kind of barriers did you face as a kid, and how does your department make sure other kids aren't facing the same things?
My primary barriers were really just like finding a place to belong and just being transparent. From second grade to about 11th grade, I was a kid that got made fun of a lot, just really had a hard time connecting. I like to say I was a good, bad kid, but a lot of times that means you're stuck in the middle, and where do you really fit in? Grades are really important to me, but fighting to be popular was important to me, so it's really about that sense of belonging. And then also just the nature of our world. My family is from the Deep South. My parents grew up in the Civil Rights Movement, and so that was an adjustment of trying to figure out where do you fit in a diverse but still divided community also.
Absolutely, that had to be tough. So what kind of work does your team do now to make sure that kids can find out about opportunities and get around the things that are in the way of them sitting in class and learning?
One of the main things that I'm super proud of for our department is really working with parents, community members, and community organizations to help kids find something to connect to. Out in our area, we don't have the Boys and Girls Clubs and all those kind of things, and our staff, they do a lot of work, and we have a lot of invested people in our buildings. But how do we provide more opportunities for kids to connect to their school communities? So we're able to bring in organizations to run after-school programs, to run weekend programs, to come in schools and do mentoring. So really just navigating those systems and trying to figure out how can we bring in more support has been amazing.
Yeah, another thing that your department has been doing for a long time now is you have equity teams in every building. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is all about and what they're doing to help students?
At a super high level, each school comes with its own community, own culture. So equity teams are really charged with identifying what that culture is, what's the school climate, and working with students to try to figure out what's working and what's not working, and really expanding the definition of equity and then also our efforts. So one thing I'm really passionate about is equity goes so much further than just the surface level of what we can see when kids walk into the building. So it's really the charge of the equity team to try to figure out what are those things, what are the barriers for our students, and how can we help them win.
It's really important work, and I think anybody that meets you would come away with the fact that you have a lot of pride in your work, in your team, and also in your community. You grew up here, you live here, and you've said community pride is something you actually want to see more of. Tell me about that.
Growing up here when I was younger, especially like in high school, our school was so connected. We didn't have social media and things like that that makes our kids' worlds bigger, which it's a great thing. But then also at the same time, I see just this sense of we lose that pride of showing up and feeling like we really belong to something. One thing I've been really passionate about and really trying to drive out in the community is because of where we are, how do we get people to show up for our kids? How do we show our kids that, one, that they matter? How do we show up and cheer these kids on so that they say, my community takes pride in me as a human being, which then helps me take pride in my school, the street I grew up in, the neighborhood that I'm in, and our district as a whole.
Yeah, and one way we can build that community pride is to teach the next generation. And recently I heard an interview with you, and you said something that was kind of provocative. You said, as adults, we don't always set a good example of how to handle conflict. What can we do to strive to change that?
I think it's all about self-reflection. That's something I really try to push myself in. I'm very, very hard on myself, but I just think overall we have to stop and pause and say, how am I showing up? In every situation, in every aspect of our lives, how am I showing up? And especially when it comes to dealing with young people, am I setting an example for them that's going to help them? I keep saying win, but I mean, how are we going to help them succeed? How are we going to help them find value in themselves and see the contributions that they can make? And let's be completely real about the nature of our world right now. We all have our different backgrounds, our different opinions, and adults have really set the tone of, if you don't agree with me, we can't come together. We're going to argue. Our kids are seeing all of that, but then we still expect them to show up and get along.
Yeah, that's a really tall hurdle for anybody to overcome, especially with the way society is right now. Well, before we let you go, Darius, let's circle back to the work you and your team are doing here in the district. You're removing barriers for students so they can make it across the graduation stage. As a district, we have a 91% graduation rate. But when you break it down, you start to look at subgroups, and that could be anything from racial groups to male, female, things like that. It's not true for every subgroup. They're not hitting that 91% threshold, and it's because of the barriers that are in front of them. One group that we look at is our students that are experiencing homelessness. Now, we're not going to spoil the numbers because, honestly, as soon as you leave, we have another guest coming in. We're going to talk all about that. But talk about the work that your team does all year long supporting students that are experiencing homelessness.
Well, one thing I really want to highlight is it's really a collective effort across our entire district and every role that we have in our district of trying to remove these barriers for kids and trying to figure it out. And that's one thing I pride myself on for our team and that I'm super thankful to be a part of that team for, is really trying to figure out how can we serve our schools, how can we serve our different departments to try to find out, first of all, what the needs of our students are. One thing I love and that I'm super passionate about is student voice. So we work with kids and their families to try to figure out what is it that they need versus what we think that they need. We're super intentional about getting out to schools to really try to work with our students, just building those relationships and making those connections with kids, and then also being intentional about inviting them to programs and educating them about our school system and our school district, what opportunities are available to be involved. Do you have everything you need to participate in band or an art club or sports? I'm super proud of the work that we do, not only for our students experiencing homelessness, but for every single kid, regardless of their background.
That's fantastic. Well said, Darius. And thank you again for joining us today. Darius Alexander, our brand new Director of Equity, Access, and Community Engagement.
Thank y'all for having me. Appreciate you.
And we're back, and joining us in the studio is unaccompanied youth navigator Tammy Booth. Tammy, welcome back to the show.
Hey.
Tammy is here with some amazing numbers, some amazing results of our McKinney-Vento, that's students experiencing homelessness. Their graduation numbers are at 84% this year. That is up from 79% last year. Tammy, this is amazing news, and congratulations on the work that you and your team are doing. So tell us about what all goes into getting these rates to keep going up. This is fantastic.
Really what it comes down to is Team Bethel, right? So I'm there, yes, working with the students one-on-one, but like it takes a team behind them. And I think like the presence of me there and pushing helps to kind of open the eyes to some of our staff to see what's going on, to be, use more of our trauma-informed care with our students so that way they can feel seen and supported, because our McKinney-Vento aren't traditional students.
Right, yeah, and we were talking earlier in the show about removing barriers for students. Students experiencing homelessness have a huge amount of barriers in front of them.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest things that we do is we look at those. We start with those lower hierarchy of needs that Maslow's put out. So, you're making sure that those basic needs are met, and then from there, transportation is huge for McKinney-Vento. So, making sure that all of our kids not only can they get to school, but they can get to every activity that they want to participate, just like a house student can.
So critical. The work you guys are doing is such amazing work, and a lot of times when we work in education, we hear these numbers and statistics, and you forget sometimes that every one of those numbers is an actual student. Mm-hmm. And these are students that you work with on a daily basis, and you get to see them grow and achieve these goals. Tell us what it's like specifically at graduation when you see a student cross that stage that maybe you've seen face these amazing, seemingly insurmountable hurdles, and then they've reached their goal. What does it feel like for you personally?
Yeah, when you look at like statistics and numbers, like I know like as a district those are important, but like you said, what I see is I see those students' faces. And graduation, it's like waking up on Christmas to me, because it's like you have worked so hard with this student, and to watch them against so many things that are telling them they shouldn't be here, they're doing it. It's been really cool because our actual college bound for our unaccompanied youth has increased greatly. Like we have a kid who got into University of Washington's nursing program this year that, is completely on his own.
That is incredible. Would you share a few stories with our audience about some of the students that you've helped and the barriers that you've helped them get past?
Yeah, absolutely. A story that really comes to mind is one of our students that just graduated that's actually bound for WSU. That was kind of like a last-minute decision. She thought, I'm not going to get into college. I'm just going to apply. And we talked about like that this would provide more stability housing-wise because she'd be able to live in the dorms. So she did apply, and she got in, but she had to take a math class that she hadn't taken yet. So it was already a couple weeks into that quarter, so we were able to work with the counselors and get her switched into that math class because she was behind. I always say it takes a village, so we reached out and found someone to help keep her up in her math and catch up. And we was a math tutor, and we met her at the Graham Library like once a week, and she passed, and she's Coug bound. So
that is amazing, and go Cougs. And we love seeing kids heading off after graduation and do amazing things, whether it's college, whether it's apprenticeship, whether it's going straight to work. Do you have any non-college bound students you can tell us about?
Yeah, I have a young man who I had worked with since freshman year. I remember when I first met him, and we talked about, it's one of the first questions I ask, like, how important is graduation to you, right? Because they have to have autonomy in this, and they have to make sure that this is what they want to do. No matter how much I want to do, they have to want it. And so freshman year, he's like, nobody in my family graduates, I'm not graduating. But not only did he graduate, but he graduated early from Challenger. And over the summer, I got back and I had a message from him. He graduated in March and then got a job working in landscaping. And he sent me a video of him with his first car that he bought.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Like that connection just keeps going. We're there supporting kids. I just got a phone call from a kid who graduated 2 years ago yesterday. So like those relationships that we build with kids are ongoing.
Yeah, and it does show that it like you gave a lot of credit to Team Bethel, and it shows that we have to all come together to help the students who are most vulnerable or need the most help, and it's great to see these results. And we can't wait to see the results that are going to keep coming year after year, because you guys, we're seeing how hard you're working, and the sky's the limit, and these kids are so impressive, and we're just so excited about them.
Absolutely. Tammy Booth, thank you so much for joining us again on the show.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you again to our guests this week, Tammy Booth and Darius Alexander. We will be back next week with a brand new episode.
And don't forget, you can catch us Saturdays at 2 on 101.9 Radio Tacoma. And of course, we're still on everywhere that you listen to quality audio, be it Spotify, Apple News, Amazon Music, what have you. Come find us, come listen. Be back next week.